Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the other loop in Python, which is the while loop. While loops are very powerful loops, and when people say which one of the two loops should I be using for what, always see the word while, think wait. That is the best way to figure out which one of the loops that you want to use. The real joke here is you could hypothetically use a while loop for just about everything in Python. You wouldn't even need to use for loops, depending on what it is you're trying to do. And we'll go ahead and show you a couple different kind of uses for it. But for me, when I tell programmers and I teach programming and I say, when are we going to use this thing? You've got to use it when you're waiting for something. And like I said, we'll see a couple different examples of where we're going to go through that. So the basic structure of a while loop is relatively easy. You simply type in while, and then you type in a statement. As long as the statement is true, the loop will continue. For example, let's say I create a quick value here. Let's say x, and I'll set it to 0. And I will create a simple loop that says while x is less than 10. I'll keep it nice and simple here. I'll print x, and I'll not be stupid, and I'll make sure I add 1 to x. So what we're saying here is, as long as the value of x remains less than 10, run the loop. Now you'll notice here, my value of x starts at 0. So if I run this code real fast, you will see that we start at the number 0, and we fire all the way up to the number 9. Yay! The other thing you'll probably realize is, hey, that's basically counting like we did over with the for loop. Yeah, but again, this is probably the most elementary, in my opinion, kind of weird use of a while loop here. It certainly will work, and it'll certainly do the job. Now, one thing you're probably sitting here going, well, this guy right here, this is a Boolean operator. I could do stuff with that. Yeah, you can. We can actually come in here and make this less than or equal to 10. Now, if I run the code this time, you'll observe we start at 0, but we end at 10. Now, you're already sitting here going, hey, that's kind of useful. I sort of like that. Now, that's doable. That's doable. By the way, you're probably wondering why I put this in here. And as a matter of fact, if I did not put this in here, we would end up with a big, nasty, infinite loop that we could not escape from without basically closing my terminal down here. That's the only way I could not kind of bail from it, because there would be no time when this condition would change. Now, a lot of times when people are using while loops, they're going to be linking the while loop to something that we're basically waiting for. That's a really important concept there. So, for example, let's say I want to go ahead and ask the user for a number, and I want to keep going until the number is in the correct range. So what I'll do here is I'll create myself a quick little Boolean variable. I'll call correct equals false, and I'll say while not correct. Doesn't that feel wrong? And what I will do is I'll say, I'll keep it nice and simple here. I'll say q equals import type the number 5, and why am I doing that? And press enter, please. I'll keep it nice and simple like that. So I'll put a little space here. If q equals 64, then of course we would correct equals true, and of course we'd say else print nope. Let's see, I'll go ahead and run that code here. I'll run it real fast. Type the number 64, press enter, please. 100, nope. Minus 64, nope. 64, boop. You can see that it actually succeeded. Now, you're sitting here going, oh, this is a little complicated, because you're saying correct is false, and you're saying while not correct, let's see, correct is false, so if I'm not false, I'm true. So while true, aha, so this is while true, which is correct. So then we ask the user for this. And again, we haven't gotten into input. There's a lot of funky things you can do with input. We definitely have to get into that at some point. And you're saying if it's 64, again, input returns a string. We'll deal with that later. We set correct to true. And of course, we run back around the loop again. And we say, while not correct, but not true is false. False, bail. And the loop immediately ends. That's actually pretty good. So you're sitting there saying, okay, this was, you had an extra variable there. That's kind of irritating. Could we have made this a little bit simpler? Yeah, we technically could have done something like this. Q equals blank, and then we could have said while Q does not equal, and let's see here, we'll go 64 again. And then we could say Q equals input, so let's copy paste, because as always, I'm far too lazy to do any real work here. Let's see, it looks pretty good. So then we're simply saying, well, Q does not equal 64. Since Q starts at a value of blank, obviously blank does not equal 64. We then say input the 64 and please. So I'd run it. It would ask me the first time I type in 64, enter. Enter the second time, blah, 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 blah. 64. Nice. Everything worked correctly. And again, we're waiting. When you see while, always think the word wait. Now, there's one really fun thing that you can do with a while loop. And one of the things that I'm always like, that's a little goofy. Why would you do that with a while loop kind of a thing like that? But I actually kind of enjoy it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to count up to a specific number. let's ask the user for a number. Input, let's say number equals int input. Give me a number, please. Number, please. I'll keep it simple. This is so dangerous. I hate this. This kills me as a software developer to do things like this. But we're trying to keep it simpler. The super short version is we're going to ask the user for a number, and we're going to go ahead and make that an integer. Actually, I hate this so much, I'm actually going to cancel it and just put the number 10 in there. I don't want to confuse you any more than I have to. So what we're going to do is we're going to count up to that number. So I'm going to go ahead and create myself a counter variable. I'll use C. I'll set it to 1. And I'll go ahead and say while C is less than number. Actually, we're counting up to it, so less than or equal to number. And I'm simply going to C. I'll go ahead and print it like that. And of course, we're not going to be dumb. We're going to go ahead and add 1 to C each time we go around. So one of the things I'm going to do is I love all this stuff up here, but I'm actually going to comment it out just for the sake of making it a little bit easier for us down here. So now when I run this code, you will see that it counts from 1 all the way up to 10. That makes sense because C is going to start at a value of 1, and our n number is going to be 10, and we simply go up by 1, by 1, by 1, by 1, by 1. But what happens if we did something really dumb like this? I'll go ahead and run my code here. You will see that it prints a 1. That checks. What if we did something really, really dumb and set that to 0? If I ever run that again, you would observe the fact that we started at 0 and shot up to 10. That makes perfectly sense. But it doesn't, because this 1 to 10, 0 to 10, is actually this 0 to 10, not this one. So this loop here never actually activated. We basically blew through the loop. Wouldn't it be nice if we had some sort of ability to basically let the user know that they done goofed? Well, yes. Watch this. Now watch what happens when I run my code here. You'll observe that it says, enter a number that makes sense, please. The reason it did that is because if a while loop is not executed at least once, it will trigger the else statement below it. This is known as a while else, if you want to kind of think about it another way. And this is an excellent way to go ahead and execute through a loop so that you make sure that if it doesn't work, it lets the user know that they goofed up. And it's actually a really, really kind of slick trick. One of those things that people did not realize that Python actually had. For those of you who are C fans or C# fans or C++, you know this is a do while loop. It's basically the exact same thing. And again, this won't execute at all because mathematically it's impossible, but it will at least let us know that it did not execute for that particular loop. Now, as you're looking through these while loops, you're like, okay, they're not too bad. They're not too confusing. Like, I get the general idea here. Basically, we're waiting for something to be false, and the moment it's false, we bail. And the answer is absolutely. Now, let's say we wanted to iterate through a loop, or iterate through a list here. So let's go ahead and see what can we play with here. Boats equals, we'll make it nice and easy. We'll do CV, we'll do DD, and we'll do FFG. Why not? Because science. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and iterate through this list and print those values using a while loop. This is a little bit messier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a variable called index, which is going to be my index. And I'm going to say while index is less than how many items are inside boats. Warning, warning, warning. Be very careful with this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print the item, the boats of I and X, which simply means we're going to iterate through each item in the boats list one at a time. Again, item 0, go up by 1, item 1, item 2, until we hit the end. Now, if we're not careful, we're going to accidentally forget to increment these items one by one as we go through them. Now, if I run this, you will notice that it smoothly and carefully iterates through each one of those items in the list, but it is so much less clean than our buddy over there with the for loop for this purpose. It's just important that you understand that you can't do this. Now, one of the things I warned you a second ago was accidentally. Let's make that a less than or equals. Watch what happens. You'll see that it has okay. Good way to break things. And it does, because we don't have an item of 3 as our list continues to iterate here. I have to be very careful. So it's one of those, we call them fence post errors. So you have to be very, very mindful of that. Again, this is one of the situations where a for loop is going to be so much safer, and it's probably going to be a little bit quicker to execute as well, because we have to create all these extra values. This is almost almost a C kind of execution for something like this, but it does work for that particular case. So as you can see, while loops are relatively straightforward. We're going to be seeing more advanced uses of while loops next time, where they really, really come into their own in the next video. Enjoy.